Welcome back. Let's continue here now. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has launched a scathing attack on the international community for the failure to stop the 1994 genocide in his country. He says current pockets of conflicts around the world are a reminder that nothing has been learned from the 1994 genocide. Among those who attended the commemoration was the South African High Commissioner to Rwanda. SABC's international news editor Sophie Mokoena spoke to Mandisi Mpahlwa about the impact of the genocide on the continent and the relationship between South Africa and Rwanda.
It's always a very somber moment when we attend, the commemoration of the genocide in Rwanda. And the story of Rwanda, the experience of Rwanda, the achievements of Rwanda, I think they tell us, that these are matters that we have to work at on an ongoing basis. But perhaps more importantly, it just always reminds us of what human beings, are capable of under certain circumstances. What human beings left to their own devices are capable of doing. And therefore, we have to, as societies, as countries, as peoples, always have to be aware of these things to make sure that as humanity, we do not move in this kind of direction.
Are we regressing as a continent in relation to hate speech?
I wouldn't say that we are regressing as a continent. We do have, I think, pockets, of things that may give that impression, but I do not want to believe that Africans broadly are regressing. I think that we are quite clear about where we want to go, what we want to achieve, and I think we have set very clear goals for ourselves in terms of what we want to be. I think that we still do have challenges of how we work more effectively towards the goals that we ourselves have set, and we have to place at the center strong institutions, enabling our people, empowering our people, and just working relentlessly and diligently towards the goals that we have set ourselves.
And finally, the relationship between Kigali and Pretoria, you representing the country here, how will you characterize the relationship? Are we seeing an improvement? I know at some point in time there were real difficult times.
Yes, that is, a big part of the work I was requested to come and do here. And I think I can say that we have, begun on a path, towards dealing with the challenges that faced us as the two countries. And it is ongoing work, and I'm quite hopeful, optimistic, and positive that in the course of time, this is something that we will refer to as history.
Meanwhile, President Kagame has responded to critics who questioned his decision to stay in power after 2 decades. Speaking ahead of the commemoration, Kagame has said his party was not blind to the fact that at some point a new leader had to emerge. Sophie Mokoena compiled this report from Kigali, Rwanda.
The country is being described as the land of 1,000 hills and is endowed with beautiful scenery. However, despite these beautiful images, Rwanda is still in a process of rebuilding and reconciliation after the 1994 genocide. Today, we visited the University of Rwanda, where the students are invited to watch a play that tells the story of how some media participated in spreading the messages of hate that led to the killings of many Tutsis and moderate Hutus. There are still fears that history will repeat itself, as those who fled the country after the genocide are reportedly continuing to mobilize in other countries.
How great or how big should we right now encouraging people in rebuilding our country, spreading love all over the world instead of those kinds of hate?
The war that was fought in 1994 was a war of blood, but the war that we're fighting right now is a war of denial. We have so many people who are denying what happened. We have so many, whether they're in the country or outside the country. So what I would like to say is, let's use this opportunity of social medias and radios, televisions to create awareness of the truth.
For me, some things or topics can be debatable, but hate speech is the red line. And it was important then for me to bring it here symbolically.
The commemoration is to remember and to prevent against genocide. And this year and every year, now we have the theme of this year commemoration is remember, unite, and renew.
Following the genocide, the international community faced vocal criticism for its failure to intervene and stop the killing. Kagame, who was part of the RPF forces that eventually stopped the attacks, says this is a stark reminder of failure to act in time.
There is very little learning in our world, in the world we live in. And that's why you find crises happening everywhere after crisis. If we learned the lessons and applied the lessons, I think we would have less problems. Like in our case, the Eastern Congo problem has been there, has been related to problems we had here in Rwanda in some way. Then other things are specific to Congo. So then there is a mixture of Rwandan problems, Congolese problems, and when they mix up and you don't approach it correctly, you tend to have a permanent situation like this.
Responding to a question on his stay in power, Kagame says the issue of succession is being discussed by his party.
I had the opportunity to discuss it with my members of the party, that it is an inevitability that we have to find, first of all, grow leaders, and not for me to decide who is going to be the next leader after me. I think that also is not necessarily correct, but to create an environment, circumstances that will give rise to people who can lead, irrespective of whether I like them or not. Because I think you brought it up referring to democracy. You're talking about governance. You're talking about good governance. In good governance, I don't think you want everyone exiting to be the one to decide who comes after them. So let's put that aside. but the situation is being looked at, has been looked at, in fact, since 2010.
His Kenyan counterpart, William Ruto, who was on a state visit ahead of the genocide commemoration, had this to say.
I want to tell you that from our own experience in Kenya, trying to get a successor can be a very disastrous project. Because it may not be the person the people want. So I think that's an area that requires much more than identifying somebody and saying, telling the population this is the person. What President Kagame has done from where I sit is commendable.
Sophie Mokoena, SABC News, Kigali, Rwanda.